Hi, it's Melanie, the artist behind Browneyes FineArt, and this particular video is a work in progress of a pet portrait. Jenkins. Jenkins is a pastel drawing, and he is done on a 12x16 pastel mat with 3 different brands of pastel pencils. I used Faber-Castell, Derwent and Caran D'ache. If you're interested in getting your own pet portrait, you can always reach out to me on my website, Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube, or my LinkedIn page. I look forward to hearing from you. Please enjoy the video. So here I am starting the WIP of Jenkins, which again is a 12x16 pastel pencil drawing. And here I am adding in the white on Jenkins' nose. And white isn't just white. White is different shades of gray, and as you saw a little bit earlier, a blue. And I always go in the direction of the fur when I'm doing fur babies, so that the design that I get, or the pattern that I get, is a fur pattern, and it is going in the correct direction, which helps to also give shape and definition to whatever part of the animal you are drawing. That particular tool that you saw earlier is a blending tool for pastel pencils. It has a little rubber tip on it, and I use it all the time when I'm using different colors to blend them in. When I'm doing detail work, in other words, I have all my layers down, and this is just, I'm putting down the details, whether they're highlights or some definition. I won't always use that blender, as I actually want the line definitions to stand out. So what you're going to see here in the beginning of this video is what I call rinse and repeat. It's laying down layer after layer after layer of the different colors that I see in the fur from the reference photo. So I'm paying very close attention to the reference photo and pulling out the colors that I see. And as mentioned before, Jenkins does have a white nose. There's the blue highlight again. I also use that quite often in the eyes. The highlights you see in eyes aren't always white as well. Sometimes they are a cool gray or that really bright blue. In fact, that really bright blue you'll see I use in some of the highlights on the nose itself. So I guess you would call the part I'm doing right now the muzzle. That's the blending tool. And I also use the blending tool in the direction of the fur. I certainly wouldn't want to put down nice layers going in a fur direction and then use the blending tool in a totally different direction, ruining the pattern I put down. As I start to finish certain areas or fill in certain areas, I'll also do detail work on completed areas, because then I see where I need to add more details and finished work to those areas as I complete areas that are connected to them. I'm just trying to see how many different ways I can use the word area. So the dark colors on the nose and muzzle are of course black, and then I have a cool gray and like a slate gray. So it's not all just black. Noses are many different colors. And I'm able to get the dotted pattern on it by very early on. I'll put a light layer of the base color. And I'll go over it with like a checkerboard pattern with the same color, and then I'll layer over that with another base color, and then I'll do the little light checkerboard again, and then layer over it, and you can see it but barely, and then I add the highlights to the checkerboard. So as I mentioned earlier, as I start to do surrounding areas of a finished feature, I will then also begin to add finishing details to the semi-finished feature, I guess you can say. So as you see me do the muzzle, I'll also add some detail work to the nose itself, some eyes surrounding fur on the muzzle. So that's a gray that I'm using along with the white. And I actually used 2 different color grays. I used like a cool gray and a warm gray, along with the highlight blue and white on the muzzle. And I also noticed that I am using 3 different brands of pastel pencils. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm using Faber-Castell's, Pitt, and Derwent and Caran D'ache pencils, because even the same colors lay down differently. So I actually use all 3 brand whites on the muzzle depending on what application I'm using. There's the blue highlight. And if you use a soft hand, which is always highly recommended whether you're doing pastel pencils or colored pencils, when you're doing layers, use a light hand. And like you saw the little small fine detailed work I was doing on the nose, when you're using a light hand, if you need to cover up what you just did because maybe you went a little bit overboard, you can go back over it with a different pencil and cover up what you need to. You'll see throughout this video demonstration that I add a lot of layers of different colors. And as mentioned, I'm able to do that because I use a light hand even when laying down the color mapping, which is what you see me doing right now. So I lay down a base color very lightly, and it's a color that I want to see come through, and it may be the primary color, but it's not the color that I want to stand out. And again, I call this color mapping. And I do this in advance of laying all the layers down. And sometimes doing the color mapping, I may not follow the flow of the fur because I'm just filling in the bottom, but I try to do that because I really would not appreciate a lot of hard work in seeing that the color mapping layer has a design that is standing out. And I think I need to get a new camera because I've tried different things, but I'm still getting some pixelated frames. So now I'm just adding some finishing touches to other layers that I already had down as I start to complete areas around it. There's always this portion or time frame in your drawing that we call the ugly time frame, and beginner artists sometimes will give up when they're at that stage, but everybody has that stage. As you can see on the color mapping area, that's the ugly stage, and it doesn't look anything like the finished areas, and that's the layering. You just have to keep going and keep layering. And again, if you use a light hand and you use a color you don't like, then you can cover it with the appropriate color. So we say, hang in there, push past the ugly stage. As long as your proportions are correct and you use the light hand, you can always get it right. And you'll notice that I work from top left to bottom right. And that's because I'm right-handed. And if I was to do any type of finishing work or even laying down color on the right bottom before doing any other portion of the drawing, that would end up on my hand. And when it ends up on your hand, not only, of course, does it fade out and possibly smear the work that you've done, but you can also imprint that color in other areas of your drawing because your hand acts as a type of medium putting the color down. So I continue now to add some fine detail in the eye as I work the color mapping around it. So if you're noticing that I have a pretty fine point on my pastel pencils on all three different brands, I did find a sharpener that worked for me. I was getting pretty frustrated. I was doing what they said and I was using the hand sharpeners and the knives, and it just wasn't working. I wasn't getting the tip that I wanted to be able to do the fine details. And some of the fine details in my previous drawings I had to revert to using colored pencils because I could only get the fine tip on them. Well, Derwent makes a hand cranked sharpener that works extremely well for pastel pencils. I found it on Amazon, and I will be sure to put a link to it on the information at the bottom of the video because it has saved me a lot of frustration and a lot of money because I was eating through my pastel pencils in just the sharpening of them. So there's a blending tool. Now I'm adding some fine details of the fur. That's on the outer layer of the dog's right side of his face. So in the reference photo of Jenkins, the light source is coming from the left side, so the right side of Jenkins' face is going to be a little bit darker as it's in the shade. And so you'll see me use a little darker colors than I used on the left side. Jenkins is sitting on a floor looking up at his fur baby mama while she takes this great picture of him. He has the sweetest eyes. I think I say that about all the fur babies I draw, though. I do start with the eyes when I draw portraits, as it allows me to connect to my subject, and it's important to me as an artist to connect to the subject that I'm drawing. Not only does it make drawing the subject more enjoyable, but it also motivates me and inspires me to do my best. So when their little soulful eyes are peering up at you, you can only do your best for them. Plus, when it comes to the technical side of drawing, the eyes are one of the most difficult and important aspects of a portrait. And if you've done all this other great work and then you put the eyes in and they're just wrong, you've ruined a lot of hours of work and material. Start with the eyes, and if you feel that they're not right and it's beyond a point where you can't fix them, then it's a lot easier to scrap that particular project when it's just the eyes that you've got down instead of the majority of the drawing. So now I'm going back over the ear. It seems in the different reference photos that I looked at of Jenkins, he has one ear that goes up and one ear that goes down. I also have a little fur baby that has the same thing. And this particular ear, or the end of it, was not on the reference photo, so I did have to look at others to draw this particular ear. I didn't want to leave it out. I just thought it was a really cute feature. So again, you'll see me using the darker browns that you don't really see on the other side of the face, because this side of the face is in shade, and therefore the shadows are going to be darker. Just about coming to the end of this particular work in progress video. I added a few little more details. At the end of the video, you'll see a picture of the work in progress where I am so far on Jenkins, and the actual reference photo that was provided to me by Maria, his fur baby mama. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully you got some hints on how to do your pet portraits. You can always ask me questions anytime. I can be reached on my website, my Facebook page, or Instagram. Until next time, live, laugh, and create. This is Melanie, the artist behind Browneyes FineArt.